Welcome back everyone, we're theCUBE, we're live here in Las Vegas for VMware Explore 2025. This is the 16th consecutive VMware annual event. It used to be called VMworld, of course theCUBE. This is the longest standing show. VM, now part of Broadcom, certainly has changed. I'm here with Paul Nashawaty, leading analyst for app dev, cloud native. You see him at KubeCon all over the place, Kubernetes, you name it, he's on top of it. Two great guests, we got two founders in here who are making waves in the industry by abstracting away and building a super cloud. Of course, you know, VMware got a lot behind cross-cloud, multi-cloud. This is now kind of starting to see that happen. Sharad Kumar, co-founder and CEO, James Bayer, co-founder and chief product officer. Sharad, great to see you.
Good to see you.
James, thanks for coming on theCUBE.
Absolutely, great to be here.
Welcome to theCUBE. CUBE alumni, you now made the list.
All right, I'm happy to be here.
So, James, I mentioned Supercloud because in 2021 I should say, Dave Vellante came back from reInvent. I'm like, Dave, the cloud, the top SaaS players, Databricks, Snowflake at that time had the data cloud. They weren't calling it the data SaaS product, they were calling it the data cloud, but they had no cloud. And then they were starting to go to Azure. Databricks obviously was on AWS and then had to go to Azure because customers had a lot of different products from Microsoft, for instance. So we saw the need for true multi-cloud where you can pick your best cloud for things you wanted, but they weren't really talking to each other at the data layer. So we saw the wave of coming around, what is that abstraction between the different clouds? Because lingua franca cloud on Amazon was not the same set of primitives on Azure, so it didn't take a rocket science to figure out, you need some sort of translation or abstraction.
That's fair. We
call it Supercloud, we got a lot of people throwing tomatoes at us, calling it hype. So we put out a working document, Charles Fitzgerald at Platform, he hated it. But we said, hey, you know, contribute. So that started the Supercloud, our narrative, but that was really early, but now you're starting to see it, you guys are doing it, so I want you to explain the product. What does FluidCloud do? Because you guys are getting traction in an area around both migrations, but also interoperability between environments. So if I got a private cloud, like VMware VCF9, they're trimming down and focusing on a core set of companies that map to their ecosystem, which is now large players, not large numbers. Azure's here, Google's here, AWS is here, and then you got this new developer environment going crazy. So what is the FluidCloud product?
Great question. So FluidCloud is all about the name Fluid. We believe that your workload should be fluid and you should be able to move them to the cloud provider that you want to move them to. And so for far too long in this dynamic that you're describing, basically people have put their workloads in one cloud and they've just stuck there. And they stay there for 10 years or maybe even longer. You know, one of the things that's kind of exciting about this conference is, as you mentioned, we see the big three hyperscalers are here. We're actually here with a partner, OVH, and a NeoCloud, trying to offer other options as well. And so the number of options is really increasing, but if you can't get your workload out of one cloud to another cloud, then you're kind of stuck. And so we believe that you should be able to do that, and our technology enables that. Basically, we scan the cloud that you're on today, we build up an inventory of what you have across all the providers, and then we translate that compute, network, storage, and similar services to equivalent but different services on other clouds.
Sharad, you also came out of Stealth.
Yes.
What day did you guys reveal, and what's been some of the traction? Give us a little taste of the timing of Stealth, coming out of Stealth, and commercial opportunities.
Yeah, we came out of Stealth almost now a month, like 29th of last month, and we picked up 8.1 million from Unusual Ventures. And currently from the opportunity perspective, we are getting a ton of opportunities, more from the people who want to move from on-prem to cloud, cloud to cloud. So those are the kind of opportunities we are looking at.
What's the demand curve look like? Give us a taste. People lining up, what's the velocity of deals? Are you guys overloaded? What's the capacity?
Yes, no, absolutely. Multi-cloud is primarily an enterprise problem. At this point in time, most of the enterprises are stuck with that. So most of the demand which is coming at this point in time is coming from primarily the Fortune 2000. And that's where we are able to see that this demand is just ramping up at this point in time.
Yeah, that demand is really definitely growing. What we're seeing in our recent research, we just had a nice set of research come in from the field. amplifies everything you're talking about in your value proposition. We were talking before we got on stage here and talked about this. 94% of respondents in our recent app dev research indicates that they're running on 2 or more clouds, right? 65% say they're running on 4 or more clouds, right? So the complexity's out there. To your point, James, you were talking about workloads being implemented on a cloud. It's set it and forget it in most environments, and because it's so rigid, right? So what I like, what I'm hearing, and obviously congrats on the coming out of stealth, that's really awesome, but there's definitely a need in the market for portability. And we actually see in our same research that 20% of organizations want application portability in their environment. 67% say it's very critical. So there's a lot of data to back what you're talking about, specifically from
One thing which I definitely want to add to that is all the people who are into this multi-cloud model, using 3 clouds, 2 clouds, or 4 clouds, majority, like 90% of them, 95% of them, when they are in multi-cloud model, majority of their workload is on one cloud, and very small workloads are on the other cloud providers. What's happening is that they're not able to rebalance this portfolio.
Right.
And the way it happens always with the new cloud provider is they have a couple of good credits which they offer, and they don't move the whole stack. They just, now the new stack start building on top of it. But what we are envisioning at this point in time is when you have to balance your portfolio, you can do that without this hassle of having 90% on one cloud and the rest 10 you can distribute it among rest 3 or 2, whatever it could be. So that dynamics will change.
Well, Paul, I want to ask you a question because I had a chance to interview at the NYSC. App dev is developers, right? So they care about, well, they care about deploying, right? So you got the Kubernetes world going beautifully.
Yep.
As AI comes in and the cloud pressure with generative AI, the on-prem action's hot.
Yes.
So VMware loves that because they can have a private cloud.
Yes.
Okay, but at the same time, there's half the audience of VMware here are migrating, right? So you have that problem. What does that mean for the developer community? And what does your research tell you on the dynamic between, because the pressure to build devs on the dev side is at an all-time high. I mean, I just saw Replit just 10x their revenue, vibe coding's happening. What does that mean for all this?
Well, John, it's a great question, and when we look at what you're talking about from FluidCloud's value proposition, it really plays into where the future of app dev's going. My practice focuses on past, present, and future of applications. Modernization's a treadmill that's continuous, you continuously run on it, right? The major barriers that organizations run into is basically complexity and skill gap issues, right? Those are 2 major things. On-prem, colos, edge locations, public and private clouds, all of it is a challenge, right? You're going to see with this migration or movement of applications, you're going to see applications go in burst capacities to different areas. So they might be moving to the cloud, they may be repatriate back on-prem. So there's the need to kind of have these different locations. The other thing, John, to kind of bring up as well is application developers are no longer going to be the professional developers, right? We're seeing the growth of applications at edge locations alone. We're seeing 500 to 1,000 AI workloads, production workloads at edge locations alone. So if that's happening, that means the lines of businesses are actually starting to be the developers. So there needs to be this little bit more transparency, less complexity, and reduce that skill gap issue as well. And that's what I really love about your value proposition.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to this point, we see AI as something that's kind of de-thawing this like kind of stagnant cloud strategies, because for the first time, you weren't able to get everything you want just from your hyperscaler that you might be using, because the hyperscaler you chose, let's say 7 years ago when you first started your public cloud, lab environment, and then it became like, okay, well, let's do a POC, and you scale it up. All of a sudden you have 7-8 figure cloud contract, but you can, for the most part, the last, call it 7 to 10 years, get everything you need from that one hyperscaler. But now with AI services coming in, that's probably not going to be, the decision you made 7 to 10 years ago on that provider probably doesn't match the best AI services available on the market. So now you're introducing new providers, adding complexity, and so there's going to be a new set of tools and services needed to manage that.
Well, and also the demands now on FinOps is a big factor now. It was a big factor, then this little thing called AI came in and FinOps kind of went out the window for a minute there, but now sustainability and FinOps is coming back in as a main player. So I think you're right on with that.
Let me ask about the cost piece, because this comes up a lot. One of the things I hear is the costs on skill development and complexity management is just another transformation project.
Absolutely.
So they go, okay. Now the other thing that we were doing with the Supercloud analysis that we did at theCUBE Research was looked at this abstraction layer that you guys are now have built, and are continuing to build. We call it a super PaaS. Now, you were at Cloud Foundry.
Yes.
You saw that game. Won't comment on the success ratio of Cloud Foundry, but you still see Salesforce has Heroku, right? You still have developer environments. People are going to have their own little sets. Also, you worked at HashiCorp.
Yep.
Okay, very successful in infrastructure as code. Okay, so now if you take those lessons learned and apply it to today, how do you look at today's kind of PaaS layer? Because all the infrastructures continue to be retooled.
Yeah.
You got GPU clusters coming out, hot chips is going on in Stanford right now, more capabilities coming, which is going, and now that Kubernetes is standardized, that's a good thing.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, infrastructure code has not changed, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
What is that next super PaaS or DevOps, DevSecOps enablement look like in your mind?
Yeah, well, I told the story a little bit earlier around the startup founder I talked with last week that is assembling their new cloud platform as they go. They took Vercel for the app tier, they took Supabase as one of these database as a service for best-in-class databases. They didn't go to RDS, they could have, but they went to Supabase because it has more developer friendliness to the point of the productivity for the end user, right? And then they took S3 for the object storage. And so, and you've seen like, even Cloudflare, I don't think they're here at the conference, but they introduced a container as a service they're getting into PaaS. So I think increasingly we're going to see this big array of cloud services, and the thing is you want to be able to have that visibility over all the services you're using, as well as for the ones that make sense for compute, network, and storage, you want to be able to move those around because sometimes this workload is very data intensive. Well, some of the providers charge you incredibly high data transfer fees, and other providers don't charge you very high fees on that data transfer. So that workload is best suited for a place that has low data egress fees. And so we think people just need to have that flexibility to move things around, but that starts with the visibility, so you can see everything that's there and then optimize from there.
On the cost side, what's your reaction to the reaction people have about cost? Well, if I move off VMware and go to, say, another abstraction layer, what's the cost angle there? Because the first thing that goes, I got to learn FinOps. Like, okay, do they? Or don't they?
So I think one of the things and which we are very proud of is, one of the features of our tool is you can have, once we do the inventory scan, we get you all the financials, like all of the cost details of your current cloud provider, and we also map it exactly to the cloud provider you're planning to move, or the infrastructure you're planning to move. And also the way we are going to build this as we are progressing towards, what if I would have moved 6 months back to a particular provider, how much I would have saved. So all of this analysis today is
you're doing FinOps?
It's part of it. It's part of it. It's like
Paul could comment on what that means, but.
I mean, so it's part of it. So that motivates people to rethink about their whole portfolio. And basically it's the RGB, the way we think is the RGB of infrastructure. RGB would be like the cost is one part of it, the security is one part of it, and the performance is one part of it. And if the user gets an absolute visibility of all these three, they'll be able to make better decision for their cloud provider. So that becomes the RGB, all of the colors comes out of this.
So one of the things I do want to kind of point out that I find very intriguing is a lot of the hyperscalers that are here, they'll basically say, well, we're going to give you the cost factors as the Happy Meal toy that comes with it, right? So like they know, they're going to tell you here's what comes with it, right, as their tech stack, right? Yeah. But what you're doing is you're saying, okay, it's not just one cloud, you're seeing it holistically across the entire ecosystem, and you're able to put the onus back on the practitioner, right? But what's interesting, right, a lot of the DevOps teams will be like, look, we just need to, they're going to over-provision, right? Because they just need to get something done. They don't own the budget. But now that there's pressures on the budget, they're going, okay, well, we need to get this done, but we need visibility. Now, they don't want to have individual tools, as we were talking about previously. We were talking about the fact that if you know a developer that knows GCP, AWS, Azure, well, first, you pay them anything that they want because you'll never find that person again. But second, it's impossible to find somebody like that, right? So what you're doing is really, really powerful.
Yeah, I think the demo that we show to people that gets them really kind of excited is we take a full stack application, compute, network, and storage, and maybe even some security services like IAM and things like that, and we have it running on one cloud provider, and in a few minutes we show them that same stack running on the other cloud provider, right? Like, and they get to choose which one they want.
And it's not premeditated on their side, you just do it for them, in the call.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a good demo.
Like, that doesn't mean that they don't have to learn the skills of the destination cloud they're going to be on, but it accelerates it because they can use the knowledge they already have on the existing cloud, and like, oh, this is how that maps to the concepts on this other cloud. Maybe this isn't so hard, it's not as intimidating.
You guys call that cloning.
That's right.
You clone the service set and then look at what it's going to look like so they can see full abstraction of that service that runs there. Okay, so I have two observations and use cases. I want to get both of your reactions. Okay. And I'll start with a little lead-in, preamble. So the top sponsors of this year's VMware Explore is, again, if you know VMware, you know what it looked like 5-6 years ago, or hundreds of sponsors. It looked like it was so small, the logos couldn't fit on the sponsor. Top sponsors, AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft. Not Azure, Microsoft, which includes Azure, probably some other things. Intel, Dell Technologies, IBM NetApp, VMUG of course, AMD, Pure Storage, Rubrik, Worldwide Technologies, WWT, and then AMD and a bunch of others. That tells me the ecosystem has moved from 1,000 flowers blooming to heavy hitters. Okay, so that tells me two things. VMware is letting go their low end, focusing on the high end, private cloud, and they want their private cloud use cases to connect to other environments. So they could use like a cloning service to understand interoperability. And two, all the other customers who were leaving, and they're probably planned for it intentionally, so two use cases. Not the big customers, they're going private cloud VCF, they're already in, they don't need to sell, it's plumbing to them, they're using it, the estate's getting manageable, it's bigger, VCF 9's heavier, fatter, bigger, more bulkier, more bang for the buck, they say. Okay, great, I got a private cloud. I want to work with AWS, Google, Microsoft, Dell, IBM, that goes on and on. Okay, so that's one use case. And then the migration. A lot of people are like, okay, I'm gone. Complexity and skills gap, that's what his research shows. Okay, check, that fits. Okay, tell me how it works. Take me through those use cases. How does FluidCloud handle the new modern VMware, Broadcom VMware, because clearly their strategy is sound. We're going all in on private cloud, enterprise cloud basically, and now the rest just fend for yourself.
Yeah, you want to?
Okay, sure. So let's tackle the VMware piece first since we're at the conference. We support all of the VMware environments, including NSXT, which is something we hear often about for people that, let's just put one of the buckets there, you said the smaller customers that don't feel like,
I'm gone, price increase, I'm out of here.
Yeah, whatever the situation is, they've made a decision. So one of the things we've heard from them is that when they start migrating, the NSXT mapping in particular, because you can have firewalls, virtual networks, subnets, load balancers, all this kind of stuff wrapped up in that can take a long time to translate. We've automated that piece. So that's something that can accelerate on the technology portion of that. We talked a little bit about the skills portion, and then some of the customers we're speaking with have up to 10,000 VMs or even more to migrate. So those are things that we're trying to accelerate that piece too. So that's on the VMware side, but then you talked about these three hyperscalers here. Well, if you're going to be doing VMware on AWS or Azure or GCP, you're also probably going to be using those public cloud services as well. So now you have a multi-cloud estate managed. So we are going to give you the visibility and the kind of the cost comparisons to make choices when you're trying to decide which.
So you help the VMware customers going all in on VCF 9 because you're saying, hey, we have clone and we can figure out which primitives to work with on AWS based on whatever your identity might be or whatever your dev environment looks like. On the migration, I'm more interested in because that's obviously very current in terms of it gets a lot of chatter on X. Okay, tons of discussion. I've heard both sides of the coin. It's hard as hell. Okay, it's expensive. I'm just going to give in. Or no, I am going all in, moving. What's the scope of the magnitude of that migration?
Yeah, and actually to echo one more piece on what John's talking about, it's not just about the technology here, it's about the learning the new tech.
Yep.
So that's something, in your response, I'd love to hear how you're addressing the tech and the skill issue as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
go for it.
Okay, so let's take a traditional migration. Let's say this 10,000 VM customer that we're talking about. It's a real customer we're working with. The state of the art for them up until this point is to hire an SI and to work for many, many months, workload by workload, to get this 10,000 VM. Yeah,
Super expensive.
every workload of, let's say, 100 VMs out of that 10,000 could cost you 6 figures and take 6 weeks, right?
Yep.
So you're chopping this like a little bit at a time,
Yep.
and they, in this case, they have a certain less than 1 year before their renewal, and some of the terms on these renewals, like they want you to do a 3-year renewal. So it's not like, oh well, I have one more year of the contract. I actually have 3. So they're strongly motivated on timeline. So they're not going to make it though if they're doing that one workload, but with the SIs.
Too slow.
It's just too slow.
And by the way, their operations are changing. They have demands.
Yes.
So they're trying to swap out the airplanes. Put a new airplane at
Right.
34,000 feet.
Yeah.
So build a bridge between 2 airplanes at 35,000 feet.
Yes.
All the best.
So the kind of the mapping that we were talking about earlier does accelerate on the technology piece. The skill set piece is going to be something, it will be a challenge. We can't do the matrix thing and inject all the cloud native into a traditional sysadmin.
Not yet.
Not yet, at
Not
least.
yet, Neuralink.
But we think that we can accelerate, as I mentioned before, and lower the time that it takes. Maybe we can't get you to a level 10 on a public cloud from, if you're a VMware sysadmin, but maybe we can get you to a level 3 within a few weeks, right? And that makes the journey to going to level 5, level 7, whatever, and more approachable. And so that's how we're looking at it there. And this team actually has AWS already, and they do have people in their organization they can learn from.
Scope that migration, timing, I don't have any clue. Because in my mind, I'm kind of with you on the other one. It's going to take months and months and months. Not everyone's going to slice the salami piece by piece. They just want to bulk the whole thing.
Yeah.
If I say, I'm all in, here's a check, what's happening? How fast does it go?
So that's what I talked about this demo earlier. We can do the technology pieces in minutes. You're not going to do it in actual minutes. You're going to do it in probably a period of days and weeks. But we believe we can dramatically shrink that timeline from months to at least several weeks on like that. Let's call it 100 VMs at a time or something like that, right? So that's that piece. There's obviously some skills transfer, some operational readiness, make sure the DR works. There's some of these process things that you're going to have to practice in the new regime compared to the traditional one, and that takes some time you can't speed up. But going from months to weeks sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, that's much better. Any comments on
No, absolutely. So one of the very important portion of this whole migration journey is when you're talking to an SI, even SI is clueless at this point in time from the resource perspective. So they're going to give a huge shout out of, oh, I need 100 of people who have this skill set, can they come on this? Another thing on the skill set is even the people know that skill set, they have to write the whole Terraform all the way back again. The way we are doing it is we get the inventory and then we have the mapping. Through the mapping we create the Terraform. And through that Terraform, the deployment could happen. Now, you don't have to write the Terraform all the way back again now for AWS or GCP or Azure or any of the cloud which you're thinking of. So our philosophy is very simple. We'll meet the customer where they are. We'll not ask them to reinvent their journey.
Yeah, that is awesome. And actually, I would love to have part 2 of this discussion on our App Dev Angle podcast, because we can go really into the deep dive in the technology.
Yeah,
I really want to talk about those workflows and the automation, because everything you were both talking about, I'm thinking AI automation is there, and it's going to help with this whole solution.
Well, it's an interesting one. We wasted almost like 4 months initially. We started this company last year, August 8th. And we almost took 4 months just working through the AI.
A lot of founders know the exact date, probably know where they were, and 5 o'clock on the 8th.
We were at the Black Hat Summit at Vegas, so exactly around this place we kind of founded the company. Yeah. So the problem was that almost 4 months we kind of tried doing this stuff using AI.
Yeah.
doesn't work that
No.
way. So then we started
Yeah.
going through the
But
hard way out.
AI could help on the skills gap down the road as you guys get
Yeah.
data
Eventually.
and workflows,
Yeah.
but it's not a silver bullet today.
No.
There was a lot of hallucinations where it would say, here's what the translation from this cloud provider to that one is, and then you'd look and they'd say, that API doesn't even exist that it's telling me to use. So we're like, okay, this is not
Yeah.
going to work.
You
We're
can't
going to
have
have to
hallucinations.
And every
approach it a
sing-
different way.
Yeah, and every single time when we are trying to deploy the infrastructure, it has to be 100% accurate. So you do not get that.
Well
with
guys,
AI.
take this to the App Dev Angle, his podcast, go do a deep dive on that for sure. Great to see you. Final point, put a plug in for the company, just out of stealth, just did your first round.
Yes.
So you're young, you're out of the gate, get traction. What are you looking to do? What's your goals? What are some of the things you're working on?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we have these enough leads at this point in time, which we are working with on the POC side of the world. We just want, so instead of having 1,000 people who like you, Brian Chesky said you need 100 which loves you. So we are looking for that that narrow group, which basically which loves us, and then they become our evangelizers. So the whole point of that is now we just want to make sure that we have all these customers, we are able to move them as fast as possible before their timelines, that's one. And then we have the multiple use cases beyond the migrations, which we are going to discuss on your podcast.
Yeah, and by the way, being global with, it's going to be a big VMware strategy. Sovereign cloud should be a nice pop
Absolutely.
for VMware because they're going to want to put that out there and you're going to need to talk to other clouds.
That's absolutely
So again,
right.
that's going to be good for you guys.
And that's one of the reasons we partnered with OVH Cloud, because OVH is primarily a France-based cloud provider, and then we have a US-based too.
Guys, thank you so much for coming on theCUBE. Appreciate it, coming in here at VMware's event.
Yep, thank you so much, really appreciate it.
Migrations, connecting clouds, multi-cloud, supercloud, whatever you call a super PaaS layer. What's happening is an abstraction of resources, mapping them in real time with software will create faster accelerated connectivity, connective tissue, and ultimately a better developer experience. I'm John Furrier, Paul Nashawaty here at VMware Explore 2025.